A very warm welcome to a brilliant episode of My Body, the Guitar, episode 15 this week, Karla. This is amazing, a great landmark.
I guess so. I mean, 15, how do we do that? It just doesn't seem possible. But I don't know about you, Paul, but I have a good time when we get together and do this. And I continue to learn things about my own poems. I mean, you'd think a poet knows her work, but you see things differently sometimes. So sharing this way has really opened up my eyes to some of the things that just magically happen that I didn't even realize were going on. So
they're all beautiful works, and it's a total pleasure. I'm learning so much myself every week, of course. And this week's a really a brilliant subject.
Yes, and for the first time, we're taking a stab at doing two short poems, so two different guitarists, and I think of them as my bad boys. And they're bad boys. And I think our viewers will be able to figure out which one's which. So do you want to do these both at the same time or one by one?
Should we do them one by one?
You tell me. How would you like to do it?
Let's do them one by one.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So the first one is for Warren Zevon, and it's in a form Joe poems, and it's the funniest. It's relatively new form. Oh, it's probably 6-7 years old, and it was invented by a poet in New Mexico. His name is John Roach, and he invented this character named Joe the Poet. And Joe the Poet is this very trippy, philosophical, kind of magical guy that will pop up in Kathmandu or in the American Southwest. And you just never know where he's going to appear and what he's going to be up to. And the only real rule is that you're focused on a character, Joe the Poet, and you write 10 lines. And that's the whole shooting match. So I've been writing these for probably 6 of the 7 years the form has been around. But my character is called JoJo the Poet. And she was the star of my 2018 book, Psyche's Scroll. And she's basically my alter ego. And what I would never bring myself to do, JoJo will do. She is a wild woman. So you might find her in Paris drinking absinthe with her jaunty beret. And she's just this wild woman. Anyway, so I put JoJo the Poet together with Warren Zevon. And this is, I'm going to read it. It's there's a little bit of colorful language in it, but this is Warren's doing more than mine. And it's called Warren, a Ghostly Infatuation. JoJo the Poet has been strumming, longing for Zevon from the beyond, his shit's fucked up honesty and impeccable picking, his what the fuck genius acoustic. JoJo is mojoing envy for his fingertips, his moxie lyrics accessible yet on YouTube, still shareable, his truth, the shit that used to work won't work now. JoJo faces his dexterous touches, finishes frontally. How it is with such bad boys.
Fantastic, Karla. That is great. Could you take us about the background for this poem?
Okay, this is based on his song, My Shit's Fucked Up. I mean, it's one of his classic songs.
It's a great wedding song as well.
Yeah, right, right. I'm standing on the altar and, I am really messed up, Um, but one of the things, so yeah, I mean, it surprised me when I first heard it, and I got into Warren. I mean, I think everybody just about knows Werewolves of London, but I was never into Warren, and then I must have been playing a shuffle mix on Alexa last summer, and I sat back and I said, "Oh, who is that guy?" So I stopped, Alexa, what are you playing? And she said, this is Warren Zevon's. I think he was doing a Steve Winwood cover. Anyway, so I started really listening to Warren Zevon and getting into him. And this song came up at one point. I said, okay, play Warren Zevon for me. And this song came up and I was like, wow, he gets away with that. I mean, the name of the song is My Shit's Fucked Up. So last night, as I was preparing for today, I asked Alexa, I said, Alexa, play Warren Zevon's My Shit's Fucked Up. And she goes, playing Warren Zevon, my blank is blank up. It was funny as all get out. But as the poem references, despite the blue language, I mean, you can watch him perform it on a YouTube video. So it's out there. It's, they can play it on the airwaves, and it's like, wow, I give him great credit for having that, kind of moxie, and as I said, his moxie lyrics to write a song like that and have fun. Telling the truth, because the song is really is a confessional, and he's gone through some, and he did go through some really, really tough times with addiction of various sorts, alcohol and drugs, and the rock and roll usual infidelities and that kind of thing. But he got his act together. And he was able to write the song about going to the doctor and confessing to the doctor that he's got lots of problems. And it's the doctor who turns to him and makes him realize that what used to work in your life, basically, Warren, it won't work, Warren, it won't work now. And I just think, I think that line is so brilliant. I mean, how many of us, keep up bad habits or fall into a habit? I mean, it's, we're constantly trying to be better human beings, but, we slip up and, we sneak a cigarette, or we shouldn't have a second drink, and we do. And, it's good for us to remind ourselves, I think, that we all have pieces of our lives to work on. More empathy, more compassion, more generosity towards our fellow humans. Right now, what's going on in the United States with racism, examining our own white privilege. I mean, you name it, we've all got room for improvement. And I just think he said it so boldly and honestly in this song. I just give him a lot of credit. May he rest in peace.
There's a lot of great songwriters that kind of came up in the 70s that had this type of, I'm thinking of Joe Walsh, and also yes. Todd Rundgren did an album called Oops, Wrong Planet. Yes. One of the things about writing a song that's kind of got, if you like, swear words in it, is that it's kind of, I mean, I'm guessing that 95% of adults will use will use those words. And yeah. I'm just wondering how many songwriters wanted to use that as a title, but thought, we can't do that. So can you imagine if that was the original title for Crazy or Saving All My Love for You?
Right. I mean, he liberates us in our own veins of creativity. I mean, he reminds me constantly that if I want to use the F word in a poem and it works and it's the right word, then I give myself permission to do it. As well as, reminding myself to, keep re-examining my life and finding out what I can do better. And,
Well, it's all about context. There's some beautiful, they're all beautiful lines. And the fact that so you've written for people watching this and myself actually. So you've written this as an alter ego.
Yes.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That was my step. That was my step of courage towards what he was able to achieve in the song. So he did the song, and Karla the poet couldn't quite be comfortable with using the F word, and so I hid behind my alter ego. But when I do that, I mean, Jojo together, I mean, Jojo and Zevon for this poem as a unit, a pair, really reminded me, Karla, you do have permission to do whatever it is you want to do with a poem, and you can't worry about the censors and all the naysayers. And if the word is the right word, that's the word you use.
And it's the most used word in 2020 anyway.
I'm sure it was.
I was going to ask you, Karla, about the line with a moxie lyric in it. What's a moxie lyric? Is that...
Well, moxie is like chutzpah. It's having the balls to write something. So he had moxie, and he demonstrated it with the lyrics to this song. So, and he has a couple others where he jabs, he pokes some fun at religion. I mean, he was a crazy dude. He wrote some wonderful ballads and story songs, narratives. And then there's just some really kind of bopping, nice rhythm beat, where he takes some pot shots at our holy grounds, religion and politics, and I just adore him. He's such a good bad boy.
Is there an element of Monty Python in his approach? I'm thinking of Life of Brian particularly. The Holy Grail, in his approach to dealing with those subjects.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think. What was it? Porcelain Monkey is one of his songs, and it's like the most bizarro little tune. But he wrote it for a friend of his who had some little figurine. I think it was. It was a replica of Elvis's toilet, okay, that his friend had bought at Graceland, Elvis's home, and he was staring at this porcelain monkey that's on this throne, so to speak, and he wrote this like funky weirdo song about it. And it's just, wow. It makes me smile. And he does that numerous times. I mean, some of them are very touching and some of them are just, lovely ballads. But boys, there are just moments like this, my shit's fucked up and the porcelain monkey that are just like, where the heck did he come up with this stuff? And let it happen and made a song out of it. And it again, talk about liberating. You want to write a song, hey, do it.
Yeah. I think he people like Warren Zevon would have paved the way for later songwriters to do that, because it was quite I can't think of before the 70s. I can't think of a song that had swear words in it. I can't think of a song.
I think you're right.
I can't think of it. I'm sure Google will have the answer, but I think it's the fact that I think with the 70s, it was such a great time to be around. I kind of grew up in the 70s, and people could kind of go for things. They could do what they wanted to and stuff like that. And it was there's no sticker on it saying parental advisory, because people kind of use their own judgment, I suppose, with this type of thing, and it's. I was going to ask you about the title, Karla, because that's a fascinating title.
Well, I mean, he's dead. I mean, we're back to this ghost thing that is a leitmotif floating through the book. You know, he's dead. I think it was 208 he died. And here I, you know, not myself so much, but Jojo, my alter ego, you know, who's in love with a dead guy who just, you know, has a crush. And that's what it, you know, it's an infatuation. It's a crush. This is not true love. This is like, you know, and he just, you know, I found him exceedingly attractive. And then when he picks up his acoustic guitar, and this particular song, My Shit's Fucked Up. So you've got one of the interesting things about the song is you've got this kind of down to earth, gritty scenario where Warren, the speaker, is talking to his physician, and his physician is trying to help straighten him out. So you have something that's, you know, pretty serious going on with this blue language. And then you listen to his acoustic guitar picking, his finger styling, and it's so delicate and so precise, and just melodically beautiful and clear, and against these lyrics. So there's almost the tension between that beautiful finger styling and this ballsy song lyric, I think is just amazing, that those two come together in such a seamless way. On the one hand, you know, kind of crude, and on the other, you know, the acoustic guitar finger picking is just flawless. So I find that intriguing about this particular song, besides the message, which always makes me smile.
I find it really interesting, Karla, when you say that, because it's really interesting how I always think of songwriters framing a lyric. How do they musically, how they frame a lyric, and with delicate finger picking. I must admit, I'm not familiar with a lot of Warren Zevon stuff. I will be after this, but sometimes I would think the accompaniment, particularly acoustic guitar, can just act as a camera, almost to focus in. Do you want it right in the front of the lyric, or do you want the guitar to kind of just shade it a bit? Is it a bit more of a blurred shot?
Oh,
in
that's
terms of
interesting.
I think it's very interesting. Also, the harmony that they use behind these songs, because if you're writing a song, you can be very direct and say, you know, you can give it to people. This is the beginning and this is the end. A lot of Johnny Cash's songs like that,
right?
But sometimes, as I say, I'm not familiar with a lot of Warren Zevon stuff, but sometimes, for instance, if you're playing a C chord in a song, sometimes if you want to have a different camera angle, you can actually, if that's the end destination, you can kind of go. So I've kind of, and this is what these songwriters kind of do, I think, is that Tom Waits is another great example of this, where sometimes the music resolves the same time as the lyric. We talked about this in the past, and sometimes to frame the lyric differently, Jimi Hendrix is a master of this, I think, because when he's singing, the background is constantly changing. If you listen to a Jimi Hendrix song, Little Wing, when he's singing, it's almost like a musical kaleidoscope behind him, because he's doing all this kind of getting all these type of little melodies behind, which we're focusing on the lyrics, but I think I can compare it to eating some really nice food, great fruit, and someone's just put a sauce on it. They just think, oh my God, this is amazing, and it really enhances the taste rather than taking over. And I think this is why these people and the next subject matter is again a great type of thing, because they really frame the lyrics beautifully, I think, musically, and it's so perfectly balanced. You know?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that, and it is a kind of magic that the music can be, you know, soft and lyrical and delicate, and the lyric could be like this on the crude side, or it could be, I don't know, maybe it's a happy song, but the music itself is in a minor key, but you're hearing words that sound like things should be okay.
Yeah.
So there's so many ways that, I think what I'm trying to say is, like, in this case in particular, his guitar playing is such a perfect foil to the lyrics.
Yeah.
And yet it makes the song. I mean, the two of them together is so
brilliant. Is there anything you'd like to add about that poem,
No, I think that's about it for Warren. And please, Paul, I hope you do listen to some more of his.
I will be. That's top of my list.
Yeah. Bless his heart. Okay, so then we also have today another bad boy, and this is about Lindsey Buckingham from Fleetwood Mac. And the poem itself is a modern sonnet, so not a earth-shattering discovery or approach here to his particular poem. But what's, I think, unusual about it is that it's actually told from the point of view of his guitar.
Wow.
So this isn't necessarily me speaking, it's his guitar speaking. So I'll read it. It's called In Fleetwood Mac's Sound Field. Why are so many of my great git gods such shits? Lindsay, you too? Temper your dark streak and your violent outbursts. Those bruises and red marks on your chippy's body belied your genius, your gift in the strings, the delicate, the glass-like music box dreamed touch precision in tight, high frequencies on Strats, Martins, and me. Among your guitar harem, strafing nails, picking complicated multiple note magic with a single string harmonic, resonating towards your selfish transcension. Beneath your fingers, we, your instruments of mastered bliss, used, abused, steeled to spring.
Powerful stuff there, Carl. That's amazing. Powerful. Wow. Let's start with the with the title Sound Field. That's a really interesting term.
Well, it's kind of, when you listen to Fleetwood Mac, I mean, it's one of my all-time favorite bands, and particularly the Rumors album. And when you put them all together, John Revie and Lindsey Buckingham and certainly Stevie Nicks. I mean, the whole band, Fleetwood, I don't know. There was a magic and a tightness and a cohesion among them that I find to this day still remarkable. Something will, a Fleetwood Mac tune will come on the radio, and it takes me, it lifts me up, and how beautifully they work together. When you consider, if you know there's the story, I mean, just the making of the Rumors album, which took something like 15 months. The quarrels that were going on, and this one had broken up with this one, and Christine was going this way, and Stevie wanted this, and it was just, it was a terrible soup of emotions and messed up love and betrayals. And then, in that sound field, that gorgeous sound that is uniquely Fleetwood Mac, this kind of backdrop is going on, so, I mean, and part of the reason that it took so long to record is there were just so much drugs going on. And it was, really hard to get through a whole take, or, they would be trying to do different tracks, and somebody, one of them would go off on, was too far gone on the bourbon or whatever it was. But somehow it came together. So you're in this wonderful sound field that's kind of, just a radiant, I don't know, sunny meadow or something. And then you have this dark stuff that's going on behind the scenes that, fans weren't necessarily clued into. And that included Lindsey Buckingham's violence against women, his battering. And that's why I just, no matter what, he's one case where he's a bad boy, and I can't forgive him.
Let's move on, because it's really interesting how you I've got it on my phone, so it's really small writing. So first of all, his guitar, actually, Karla, we should explain about his guitar, because he's totally unique. He's got his custom-made guitar, hasn't he? That he plays the fingers. He doesn't use a plectrum. He uses, I think, a thumb and two fingers.
Yes,
like
primarily.
So yes. Kind of a claw hammer technique, like a banjo. Makes him fundamentally play different, because a bit like Mark Knopfler, when guitarists play with plectrums, you hit the string from side to side, but Lindsey Buckingham really is plucking the string out. So he's getting a different type of tone. And also, when you play with your fingers, Jeff Beck does the same thing. There's a real connection to the guitar because it's flesh against the guitar.
Yes.
And there is something about that. I mean, and he has a wonderful touch on the guitar. When he plays slide on there's another one, the chain, he's going when he sings. That's not the right key, but it's there. So it's really interesting because, I mean, with him being an angry guy at the time, I would say, I mean, I think they all were. How much beauty came out, because Dreams is off Rumours, isn't it, I think?
Yeah.
And I've been arranging that recently, and that starts with these chords, which is it's an F major 7th, which is one of the happiest sounds on the guitar you can play. First chord from Girl from Ipanema.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it sounded very samba-like.
Yeah, and it's like just like 2 chords. Well, there's an A minor in there as well, thrown in for good measure. But it's almost like a bossa nova. I know that the lyrics are kind of maybe a bit darker, but the music is very bright. I was thinking when we were talking about Lindsey Buckingham and Fleetwood Mac of how many songs are in minor keys, and I can't think of that many songs. Even Landslide starts. Is an F. Same as Dreams, same key. But they use major chords in a sad way.
Yeah.
Took my love and I took it down. I climbed a mountain, then I turned around. And it's kind of it should be. That's quite. It's just an interchange, really. But they have this ability to really paint pictures with if you like, sonic from a sonic palette that should be happy, but it's right. it's kind of not. Certainly I know Peter Green's Fleetwood Mac wrote in a lot of minor keys, but I think of the hits for Fleetwood Mac. Rhiannon is that's a minor key. That's an A minor, but there's not many of them in minor keys, and it's really interesting. I think the other thing, when you say sound field, I totally agree with you, because Rumours, particularly production-wise, was one of the groundbreaking albums, but it sounded so beautiful.
Yeah.
I listened to Dreams, and there's bass and there's drums and there's lots of guitar in it, but nothing kind of it's a unit you're listening to. You're not listening to five individual musicians. It's a
Right.
sound field. You just summed that up so beautifully.
Right.
I was trying to look for a word for it, but that is it. It's a sound field. You look in a field and you see the horses, you see the grass, you see the trees, and it's.
I think it's a term. I probably learned it from reading that book about the making of the Rumors album. And I can't for the life of me think of the author right now. Brilliant book. And he was the sound engineer. And I mean, it's more geeky than a lot of people might want in terms of how a piece of music comes together from these different tracks and different effects, and we hear it coming across the radio. We have no idea the work that went into that. So I'm pretty sure that it's a term that, it's a geeky term that came out of the engineer's side of the console. So and it does make me feel that way when Fleetwood Mac happens to come on the radio in the car. I mean, you can't help but, I don't know, move in your seat and start singing along. I mean, there are a lot of people like that, but I don't know. For me, the Fleetwood Mac, there's an energy and that, and maybe it was the era, I don't know. And then between Christine McVie and Stevie Nicks, I mean, you have two of the most incredible female vocalists who were part of this. And, so who cares who was sleeping with whom when, but, they had a lot of problems among themselves. And Lindsay was the worst offender.
It strikes me, kind of, if anyone's going to write a song called "My Shit's Fucked Up," it would be Fleetwood Mac.
Well,
I mean,
Warren beat him to it.
I think that would be if that would be the working title for every song on Rumours, I would think.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
But it is interesting how he's not what I would call an aggressive guitar player, particularly.
No.
Not in the same way as Stevie Ray Vaughan. I mean, not that he was aggressive all the time. Stevie Ray Vaughan or Joey Ramone or one of those like real hard hitting guitarists. He's such a delicate. Maybe it's an example of the guitar's kind of a solace where you can kind of come into a world where it's only you and the instrument.
Right. Yeah. And it may be that because there's been, and I haven't researched it too deeply, but there have been some, and there's an allusion to it in the Rumors book. And then I read a couple other articles subsequent to that in like guitar.com or something like that, there's some belief that really Lindsay was having emotional difficulties all his life, that there may have been some manic depression. I mean, a lot of it's speculation, but he did have some really serious emotional difficulties, and unfortunately, for all the beauty of his playing, his handling of the guitar, I mean that those single string harmonics that he used, for example, which are just so delicate and haunting. I mean, he was a brutal dude. I mean, his temper was horrific, and it got the better of him. And when you add drugs in there and alcohol abuse, you get a woman beater, and it's very, very sad. So it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see over the coming years. I mean, how musical history looks back on him. I mean, I'm certainly making a pretty tough statement with this poem.
Mm.
And there are moments in the book where, you know, my feminism really rears its beautiful head of hair and says, you know, enough of this. There's, you know, you crossed the line. That's it. You crossed the line, you know. You can have this, you know, terrible, this wonderful genius, but I can't. But what he did in his fits of rage, his temper tantrums, is for me unforgivable, and all that genius just seems tainted to me by it. I still listen to them all the time. You know, they're on my rotation on my Sirius XM car radio.
Yeah.
But you know, when I stop to think about him, you know, my temperature goes up and I get a little bit, you know, hot under the collar. And it's just, you know, it's just sad that he, you know, he was in trouble. He was in deep trouble with drugs and alcohol abuse. I mean, you know, he would talk, he invented this word that, you know, I talk about his music resonating towards your selfish transcension. And I mean, it's part of the delay in making the Rumors album was he would have to you know, would get totally wrecked before he wanted to play. And he called it, you know, oh, my transcension. I mean, he invented this word for this state of what is basically blotto. But he still played the guitar, which, you know, I have a couple of drinks and my fingers are like sliding all over the place. No, you shouldn't mix the two, Karla. So it's like, you know, maybe before I die, I will forgive him, but I'm not there yet.
I think with alcohol and music, I've read lots of interviews and books, and everyone I've read has said that they thought they were playing really good on alcohol, but when Nile Rodgers is one, he said that's what made him stop drinking. Is he saw a video of himself playing and thought, no, because I mean it's amazing that they make this great music so out of their heads, but I think I don't think it one or two possibly can loosen people up, but really the more drunk people get when they play, the focus is on muscle memory, because you're not kind of, you know, there's and I've done it myself. There's a line you cross where it's inspiration or just awful, you know, and it's kind of. I mean, I've never really taken drugs, so it's like apart from an inhaler, but you know, but with drugs,
right?
I'm not quite. I can see that might, like Hendrix, you know, Beatles and stuff. They might have taken so the LSD and seen something in a different way, but alcohol, I don't think for any. I cannot remember reading any article where somebody said I was much better when I was playing drunk. Joe Walsh said the same thing. He said Joe Walsh, Rod Stewart. I mean, all those. It was kind of the culture, but I think to be in the highest creative state, you've got to be a bit loose, but you've got to be aware of what's going on. And I think, I mean, Eric Clapton's the perfect example, because he'd do gigs in the 70s lying down because he could not stand up, you know, and he was kind of so. And it's when you see him, it's like their Life in 12 Bars, the documentary, and you see him and he's shouting at the audience, and it's like you kind of. I think you're relying on when you rely on muscle memory, you're not in the highest form of creativity. I don't think.
Right.
I think, and that's one of the things. Harmonics on the guitar. We should mention that, Karla, because he's a real master of this. So what happens when we play a note normally on the guitar is we play the note just with these metal things are frets. We play it just behind the fret, because the metal bar there there it is making the pitch of the note. But if I put the guitar like this, excuse me, is with a harmonic, if I can do it, probably not actually, is I'm not actually pressing the string down. There it is. I'm not actually pressing the string down like that with this finger. I'm actually just touching it very lightly. Now I can't play any notes in this position, but I'm not, instead of pressing it down like that,
Yeah.
I'm just touching over the top of the fret. So when I play it, I get this bell-like tone, out of tune tone, and these are all over the neck. And what these are, these harmonics, as I understand it, is that when we hear one note, that note, we're actually hearing hundreds of different frequencies in that note. Like when you hear a church bell, you'll hear a lot of different notes.
Yes.
It's called sympathetic resonance, and it's basically called from what's called the harmonic series, which is basically the acoustic laws of the universe, the way that sound frequencies vibrate together. So, for instance, so what happens is we've got a lot of sound vibrations there, working with that note. Sorry, but when I play a harmonic, I actually filter out a lot of they call overtones, so I get the pure note. That's so you get this. You get these bell types of tones, because what you're doing is if you're kind of filtering out all the stuff underneath, all the frequencies underneath that make this note. It's a bit like, I can describe it with cooking, for instance. If you're making a shepherd's pie or something, you need the meat and the vegetables and everything underneath it, and then the potatoes on top. I'm making me hungry now. So
me too.
What a harmonic is the harmonic is just the potato with nothing underneath it.
Wow.
So you've got that. You don't have the depth of tone, but and this is the great thing about Fleetwood Mac, is that the arrangements of their songs are so brilliant because everything has a space. There's nothing on because they took so long to make it. Every drum fill, every hit of everything has a place in the arrangement, and not only that, it has a frequency range in the recording, in the mixing. Everything, the bass drum and the bass are down here in terms of frequencies, and the whole thing kind of goes up. And the great thing about one of the reasons why Fleetwood Mac changed, or their producers also and engineers changed the sound of music, is that there's no harsh frequencies. There's edge to the sound, but there's nothing that goes. It's all very smooth.
Yes.
And it's all very, and it's almost a genre by itself, really, because how do you define Fleetwood Mac other than?
And Lindsey Buckingham would manipulate those harmonics, and drop them in just the strategic places in the songs. And it's, as you demonstrated, it's a very delicate movement on the guitar to just barely touch that fret to get that bell tone. And that's that music box quality that,
Absolutely.
I hear that tinkle. It's just that pure tone, and it adds such dimension to, you may have a hard driving beat going on, and then he lays on a series of those harmonics, and you think of the delicacy that it took to make that sound, the movement of the gentle movement of his fingers, and then he juxtaposes it against, he's drunk out of his mind, he's probably coked out, and yet he pulled those kind of things off. Yeah,
it's an interesting aspect, because I didn't, until we spoke about this, I didn't really know anything about his. I knew that there was a turbulent personal life with Fleetwood Mac. The thought is that the story of Rumours makes a Verdi opera look like Sesame Street, basically.
Yes. It's pretty soapy.
It is. It's like you could take Macbeth and you think that's like Sesame Street compared to Fleetwood Mac, but the fact that they made so much great music under very trying circumstances, to me, I'm thinking that the music was the I mean, I'm sat here on a webcam, but it's like, to me, music was kind of the salvation. Otherwise, they may just have all imploded completely.
Yeah, yeah. And they, and they did a brilliant job of no matter what, being able, even though it took, may have taken some time, of making the music happen and making it work. I mean, the Rumors album in particular, so beautifully engineered and produced. And it, I mean, take after take after take, and let's add this track and let's take that track out, and they hung in there. I mean, it wasn't just the engineer and the producer at the console, the sound engineer. I mean, they would jam in cram into the studio, and sit there for hours and hours picking a piece. No, that's like 2 notches on the slide on the console, or this is before totally digital recording, and it's just, I mean, they really stuck to it. The music was greater than they were individually, and the music was greater than all the troubles that the soap opera that was going on between the couples in the group, and the breakup and the reconfigurations of the couples, and so
I think what to say about is what an engineer does in a studio, is that they've got the producer that kind of artistically suggests things, and obviously he's sat at the, I'm doing this for mixing desk, he's sat at the mixing desk, and the engineer does kind of all the automation and stuff like that, and he's maybe cutting the tapes together, because one of the amazing things about all these records is that we even if you have one of the most basic mobile phones now, you've got more technology in your phone than they did to work to do this, which brings in a really interesting point, because they were working with some very powerful recording equipment, but it was more about, again, capturing that performance, because they couldn't, you with tape you can't copy and paste. Well, no, you can't do it. You can't. But literally, you've got to cut it up. Whereas sonically nowadays, I mean, my laptop is as powerful as one of their. I can do more on the laptop. I've got more sonic possibilities on there. But I think it's the fact that as a band, they'd been together 10 years. I think when Rumours came out, at 77. I think so. 67 was, I think, the first Fleetwood Mac album with Peter Green. And in those 10 years, such a slide. And the other thing I wanted to ask you, Karla, also, is that the fact that how they actually got the gig, because as I understand it, Mick Fleetwood was checking out a studio, and the studio was checking out for the album, or for the album he was making at the time. The demo was a Buckingham and Nick's album.
Oh, I'd forgotten that. Yeah.
So that was kind of, it was meant to be. I mean, but it's such a, if they ever make a film of it, it will be a, shall we say, gritty drama.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
I hope they do. I mean, it would make a wonderful film. I think, because you've got all kinds of shenanigans going on, and then you've got the music, which is the real star of the show, and then the back room, the people we never see. We never see the engineers. We never see the producers. We don't see the young 20-somethings bringing the coffee or arranging for the delivery of the latest Coke supply or whatever. But all these characters that which for any album is true. It's easier, I think, now, as you describe, given the digital technology. But back then, I mean, and boy, you did not, something happened to one of those tapes,
Yeah.
It gets caught, you've lost, you've got to start over. I mean, yeah, you can literally, cut and paste a tape, but I mean, they were fragile materials.
It could come in full circle, Karla. There's a rumor that Fleetwood Mac are going to do one more last tour with Lindsey Buckingham.
Really?
Yeah.
Ooh. Well, I saw them in, I'm trying to think, 82, maybe.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'm really pleased I did. I mean, it was just outstanding. My brother and I went. He got great tickets, and it was in the.
Was that
they used to call the War Memorial in Rochester, but great place and a wonderful evening and just dynamite.
Yeah. Was that the Tango in the Night tour?
Probably, yeah. I'd have to go back to my journal from back then and say, okay, which tour was it? Or look, compare my journal with, the history that's available online to peg the different tours. So.
When you did this, the Lindsey Buckingham poem, Karla, what type of research did you do for it?
Well, I did read the whole Rumors book from front to back, and as I always do, I'll get on Wikipedia and run through their history, which is quite extensive, and that always leads me down the wormhole. Because then here was an article that was in Rolling Stone in 77, and then there was an article, when I start down that whole path of reading and finding different takes on tours and different journal, commentaries on their performances, and I can get lost in all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then of course listening over and over and over and over again.
I wonder if they'd have been as successful if they'd actually got on better. I don't know. Would Rumors have been such a good album if they'd got on well?
I don't know. I mean, we'll never know, but I mean, it's interesting to think about if they were so dysfunctional, okay, in the making of that. I mean, that's I think one of the all-time best albums, period. If they were that dysfunctional, I can't imagine what they would if they had been straight and not having, emotional conflicts between the actual performers and their private lives. I can't imagine how stellar, even more. But we'll never know that.
Yeah, I'm thinking of Pink Floyd. Roger Waters and David Gilmour were certainly in the Wall. Were barely speaking. 1980. Right. Mick Jagger and Keith Richards would fall out. I think the Beatles were fairly, antagonistic, and certainly Queen used to fall out a lot in the studio. And it's kind of, I suppose, it's that creative tension that kind of does that, really, possibly. But I don't know. I think it's neat. Is there anything you like to add to that, Karla? Because there's so much in the we've not actually discussed much about the book. We've been
no, I think the final. The bottom line for all, in this poem, his temper, the brilliance of his playing, but here we're the guitars in his harem, and he has used us, but I'm really asking the question: did he use us or did he abuse us? And the answer to that question, it's a little bit oblique. But steeled to spring. So no matter what he did to us, we are guitars and we are steeled to spring. We will do what we have to do to let the music come through us.
It's throughout the whole series. I've always thinking it's incredible that how a tool of the trade, be it a guitar or a pen, can enable such creativity. With not just your guitar poetry, but your books. That how a pen can like enable you to like write all those beautiful works, and it's incredible. What would we do without that type of thing? I suppose it would be an oral tradition.
And I really think, I mean, I really do. I mean, I name my guitars, they are my buddies. And I really do think they're waiting for us, or mine is waiting for me, to release its magic.
Yeah.
And when I play something and it actually comes out halfway decent, I'm like, I listen to my guitar and I made him happy. This is what this instrument was built for, was to make these beautiful sounds. And I really do think that they're waiting for us, and they want us to let their lives live through the music they can produce for us, with us. It's a collaboration.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, it's a little mystical like this, but that's okay.
It's very interesting though, because it is, especially with him playing. It's like a hybrid acoustic electric guitar that he designed, and it's a really different sound as well. It's such a beautiful sound, like I said, with the sound and the private life. It's something that a lot of times in the UK, listening to music in the UK, certainly in the 70s, there wasn't so much of the private life being around. I wasn't really aware of the but the background to rumors until I actually read about it. The tabloids weren't really interested particularly. So it just becomes the music, really. I mean, because going back to Wagner, I mean, Wagner apparently was a really nasty guy, but he wrote some incredible music.
Yeah.
And then and a lot of these people, it's a difficult balance, isn't it, between hearing the music and then finding out that they're what went on and stuff like that. I mean, and then you look at someone like Billie Holiday that had an incredible voice and had such a sad life.
Yeah.
But when you hear her sing, it's just like, you're hearing such a beautiful, pure talent. It's amazing. Yeah. These are brilliant works, Karla.
Oh, thank you.
It's amazing.
It's just, it's fun. I have a lot of fun, and I never know where the poem is going to take me. I mean, I finished the book Rumors, and I had read, I'd read so much stuff about Lindsey Buckingham, and I was like, this is what happened,
I was going to ask you one more question, Karla. Yeah. With not just with these poems, but how do you feel when you've actually put the pen down and you feel like, yeah, this is kind of finished now?
Oh, it always feels good. It's like, yeah, that one works. Got that one, nailed it, and then maybe, 50 or 60 revisions later. I mean, the one that the Jerry Garcia poem, that took forever to write, it seemed. But when you're done, you somehow know it. You're done.
Yeah.
And then it's like, and then I'm ready. I'm like, all right, I did it. Now, what's next?
It's lovely. It's a lovely feeling, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's
a high. It's a high.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. It's something that's really, really, and it comes across in all your work. I think the kind of the way you structure things, it always leads to this kind of like fantastic finish to every poem. Every poem's got such a beautiful last line. Well, they're all fantastic.
Thank you.
But the last line's like, oh my God. And then
I pride myself on my closing lines.
Because then, like with the Jerry Garcia, when you reversed the anything but Jerry.
Right. The beginning, the first half is like, wake me in the morning with anything but Jerry Garcia, and then the second part is wake me up with anything Jerry Garcia.
Yeah, That's brilliant. You know, and I
And
think
they're fun. I mean, it's just, and I don't know where these things come from, but all of a sudden they're there. That's it. Boom,
brilliant.
done.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, onwards and forwards, kind of with this for sure.
Yes,
And
yes. I don't know what we'll do next, but we'll do something.
I look forward to it. Thank you so much. This has been an absolute
Right.
pleasure as ever, Carla, and I'm learning
Yes,
so
thank
much
you,
from this.
Paul. Thanks, everybody.
And we look forward to the next one.
Okay,
Thank you
it's
so
a
much.
deal. All right.
Bye
Bye,
bye. Thank
Paul.
you.
Bye, everyone.